Jalen Williams is definitely one of the weirdest rookies in this year's rookie class. Jalen Williams is a 6'5" guard, yet he consistently throws down dunks like these that make you trick yourself into thinking that he's closer to the size of a power forward or a center rather than a shooting guard. That's because he's got a freakishly long 7'2" wingspan, which is one of the factors that contributes to the illusion that Williams is a lot bigger than he actually is. He's a shooting guard that you're able to camp out in the dunker spot because he's simply athletic enough and lengthy enough that he can rise above the rim at will and throw it down. But he's also got incredible feel for the game, so he's able to recognize Aaron Holiday turning to look where the ball went for just a split second before he bursts to the basket to get into open space so he can complete the give and go with the two-handed slam. Williams is a weird player, and it's this weirdness of his game that makes him so exciting. His counting stats aren't really jaw-dropping compared to some of the other rookies in this class, but his impact on the Oklahoma City Thunder has transcended any box score numbers. Jalen Williams, for the few of you who may not know who he is at this point, was the 12th overall pick in the 2022 NBA draft, coming out of Santa Clara as a junior, and he's one of the older rookies being drafted at the age of 21. Williams is a really fun player because to me he's a perfect balance between the visible and the invisible impact. At this point in time, he kind of falls into that gray, murky connector category where it's clear that he's good enough of a player to be doing more than he's responsible for, but there's just enough talent on this roster right now that it's not really necessary for him to be taking on more responsibility just yet. Although more and more is being asked of him as this season has gone on, and he's been living up to these increased expectations. I think the craziest thing to me about Jalen Williams is the fact that even if he never got any better than he is right now at this moment in his career, he would still have a very long and very impactful career in the NBA. That being said though, he's still very clearly not done getting better, and he has a ton of upside, both on the offensive and defensive end, so it's far too early to be putting any pins on his ceiling. So in this video, I want to take a look at what we've seen from Jalen Williams this season that has already solidified him as a productive NBA player for years to come, as well as what we can project from him going forward and why I think he should be a clear lock for all-rookie first team. Now, like I mentioned a second ago, Jalen Williams' numbers for the season aren't going to knock your socks off. He's putting up 12.8 points per game. He's got a 58.5% true shooting percentage, so he's a little bit above league average in terms of his efficiency. And while he is getting 3.1 assists per night, it's not like he's racking up dimes on a nightly basis. I think it's important to look at where and how he gets his points because this is going to paint the full picture for us. One of the best things about Jalen Williams is how he only focuses on the shots that he knows he can hit. If we go and take a look at his efficiency, he's most efficient on shots at the rim and in the short mid-range area, and he's least efficient on long mid-range shots and from beyond the arc. Now, when you look at his shot frequency, 68% of his shots are coming either at the rim or from the short mid-range area, and only 32% of his shots are coming from beyond the arc and in the long mid-range area. This shows that he's a guy that knows his strengths and when to lean into them. He doesn't try to force a lot of bad shots that he knows he can't hit on a consistent basis, so he looks for the opportunities and tries to put himself in positions where he can generate the highest percentage shot possible. Now, one of the things contributing to his efficiency is the fact that he is a really strong cutter. OKC's offense is predicated on lots of off-ball movement around the driving and kicking of Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, and it's able to function so well because OKC has surrounded their two main guys with a bunch of really great off-ball players. The way that Jalen Williams works off the ball is really special. He's got great instincts, great timing, and he's developed some really strong chemistry with his teammates. So in this play that I'm going to be breaking down, there are two Jalen Williams that I'm going to be mentioning. If I say J Will, I'm referring to number 6. If I say JDub, I'm referring to number 8, the player who this video is about. So this play initially starts with the ball over on the right side, but Shai reverses it over to the weak side, and keep note of how the defense kind of pulses outward, creating a lot of this space on the inside. J Will fakes the pass to JDub in the corner, which forces Dame to close off the passing lane, and J Will is going to pump fake the shot, which prompts JDub to make the backdoor cut. and J. Will threads the pass perfectly to him for JDub to get the slam. You can basically always count on him for a backdoor cut whenever his teammates are driving. It almost always leads to a high percentage look at the rim. The fact that he gives OKC a free bailout option on pretty much every single drive is such a simple thing that's able to lead to easy high percentage offense on such a consistent basis. Defenses often collapse forwards on drives towards the three-point line like Kira Lewis does here, which opens up all of this space around the baseline. JDub is really good at recognizing that all of that is free real estate, so he cuts to the space to create an easy look at the rim out of essentially nothing. His three-point shot still needs a little bit of work, so as far as the spot-up department goes, probably still has a little bit of room to grow. The important thing to me is the fact that he's still able to contribute so much to the offense without being a reliable three-point shooter right now. And the three-point shot is something that a lot of rookies struggle with. It's a different distance than the college three-point line. So even if you were a good three-point shooter in college, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to be a good three-point shooter in the NBA. Where things get really interesting with Jalen Williams is when you start looking at his potential as an individual scorer. Being a connecting piece is great, and he's going to be able to contribute in that role for a really long time if that's all he ends up doing. But I think we've seen a ton from him so far this season that shows he can create his own shot on occasion. There's a lot of untapped potential there that he can still extract. So the question with him really comes down to, does he flesh out the on-ball aspects of his offensive game enough to the point where he can become a reliable scorer on volume? I think one of the areas where you can really look at his scoring potential is his mid-range game, and you can tell that he's learned a lot from Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, and that Shai has had a significant impact on Jalen Williams' on-ball scoring. He's starting to inherit a lot of the same tendencies, some similar post footwork. They utilize similar methods for getting the ball to the basket on their finishes in regards to offhand finishing, switching hands midair, things like that. He's still got quite a ways to go as far as his mid-range efficiency. Like I touched on earlier, he's still not the best shooter in the world on long mid-range shots, but it's an area of his game where the potential is there. You can see that it's not far off from being something that is a reliable weapon for him. The process is there, the shots just aren't falling yet. When trying to talk about how a particular player fits within OKC's roster and what types of players they're looking for, it's clear that there's an emphasis on guys with a diverse skill set. They don't want one-dimensional guys, they don't want specialists. They want guys who can not only knock down their shots, but also operate as a playmaker or a ball handler on occasion. That's what makes Jalen Williams such an exciting player, is because he's able to operate in so many different roles. He can be your primary ball handler when Giddey or Shai aren't on the floor with him. He's proficient enough of a playmaker to continue orchestrating their offense even in their absence. As a matter of fact, he's putting up 6.5 assists per 75 possessions when Shai and Giddey aren't on the floor. So it's clear that the team views him as the third guy when it comes to playmaking. That's a lot of trust that's being put in a rookie in year one, but it works though because his style of play is really similar to Shai's. So there's no need for them to change their system up to accommodate a different primary ball handler. He still does a ton of driving and kicking, manipulating the defense with the threat of his finishing ability. He can find cutters with ease and hit them with dump-offs, just like they'd be doing if Shai were in the game. His overall role versatility is one of the core aspects that makes this OKC team work. Now, all of the versatility that I've spent so much of this video harping on extends to the defensive end as well. There's a common phenomenon where a player who isn't necessarily tall is still able to defend bigger players simply because their wingspan is so ridiculously long that they can still disrupt shots by 7-footers even though they're 6'5". And this applies to Jalen Williams. OKC hasn't really been playing a ton this year with a traditional center in the lineup. One of the reasons why that's even possible in the first place is because of Jalen Williams. His wingspan, defensive instincts, and verticality allow him to operate as this bizarre rim-protecting guard, even going as far as being a reliable weak side help defender that's fully capable of disrupting and even blocking shots at the rim. On the flip side, he's also agile enough to guard the perimeter, being really disruptive with his hands and shutting down a lot of space for his matchup. And with that wingspan, even if he does get beat off the dribble, he's got the ability to get blocks from behind and make really difficult recoveries. OKC seems to have a pretty defensive-oriented mindset. Even throughout this rebuild, they've seemed to really hang their hat on their defense, and I think JDub fits that perfectly. And from a more bird's eye view perspective, his game as a whole fits this team perfectly. He's just a very skilled player, and I think that's kind of the philosophy that OKC is going with right now, where they're just trying to get guys who they may not be the most developed or polished players in the world, but they're smart players and they know how to contribute and play team basketball. And Jalen Williams could not be a better fit for that mentality. If you guys enjoyed this video and you want to see more content like this, please consider subscribing and leaving a like on the video. That's the #1 way to support me and help me continue making content. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.